Thank you, Dimitar, and thank you all for joining our Tilburg University session today. Again, my name is Anka Costa. I am an international recruiter for Tilburg University. I actually graduated here in 2017 at Tilburg University. I'm originally from Romania, so I've been an international student myself and in your shoes. And my colleague today with me here is Mirela. Mia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Добър вечер на всички. Както вече споменах, аз съм Мирела Коева, съм трета година студентка в университета и в момента работя като студент-асистент, така че ще поема част от презентацията и ще наглеждам чата през цялото време и накрая в Q&A сесията също така ще помагам с отговори на въпросите ви. Само да напомня да слагате въпросите си в чата, а не в Q&A секцията на Zoom.
There you go. Thank you. I'm going to share my presentation with you guys. We aim to finish this presentation within 30 to 40 minutes, maybe. In the meantime, please post the questions that you might have in the chat. And at the end of the presentation, I will go through all of them and answer as many as possible. Mia will help me with that as well as our partners from Skyline. So if you have any questions about admissions, about the student life, about the programs themselves, feel free to ask them in the chat because that's why we're here. So it's really your chance to get a direct answer from the university representative. And we can start the presentation now. And Mia, please let me know if you can properly see the slides. You can see the slide sharing, right? You can.
Yep, all good on our end.
Okay, great. So let's start with the structure of today's presentation. So we're going to talk a bit about the Netherlands, of course, and what it's like to be a student, an international student in the Netherlands. Then we're going to offer you a couple of useful information about Tilburg University. And then Mia is going to continue with talking about the English taught bachelor's programs that we offer here at Tilburg University. And we're also going to briefly mention the master's programs in case there are any master's interested students out there. Then I'm going to go back to talking about admission, application, a couple of tips and tricks, some deadlines as well, some financial matters. And as I said, at the end, we have a Q&A session. I will repeat this. So guys, if you have any questions, post them in the chat so that we can smoothly go over them at the end. We also don't have a time limit. So as many curiosities as possible, the better. Okay, so let's start our presentation. So why do students usually decide to study in the Netherlands? Of course, that there are many factors that students take into consideration when they make such an important decision, such as studying abroad. But I'm just going to offer you briefly a couple of the main reasons why Netherlands is such a popular study destination nowadays. And the first one would be the wide range of English taught programs, both bachelor's and master's. So there are more than 2,000 English taught programs in the Netherlands, which means that you really don't have to speak Dutch in order to study or live here because your entire academic experience will be in English. And this is the same that I experienced in Mia as well. And I'm quite sure that if you have older friends that studied in the Netherlands, they will be able to back me up on that. Another advantage of the Netherlands is the competitive tuition fees, especially for those of you, and I'm guessing that most of you are Bulgarian who are watching us right now. As European Union citizens, we pay a fraction of the tuition fee because the Dutch government subsidizes the tuition fee for EU nationals. That means that for the first year of a bachelor program, that's usually around 2,000 euros. So this year is 2,143 euros. And in the first year, you actually pay half of it. So that's around 1,000 euros. And then for the rest of the academic years, you will pay 2,000 per year. There are some programs in the Netherlands that might charge more, such as some university colleges, or for example, if you want to study medicine somewhere else, then that's a bit more expensive. But at Tilburg University, all our bachelor programs cost around 2,000 euros per year for European Union nationals. So comparing this tuition fee with the ones in Great Britain, for example, or in the US, again, it's just a fraction of the price. It's also, the Netherlands is also one of the best EU countries for business and for entrepreneurship as well. So it's really a hub of innovation. And Tilburg University is located in an area that's called Brainport, and it's called the Silicon Valley of Europe because this is the area where in Europe the most patents come from every year. So there's a lot of innovation going on here through companies such as Tesla, Philips, and other sorts of companies, especially in the field of IT. The Netherlands in general offers excellent education. So all Dutch research university, including Tilburg University, is ranked as the top 200 250 best universities in the world. That makes the Netherlands, that puts the Netherlands actually on the first 2% of all best universities in the world, just to give you an indication of the quality of education that you will receive here. Also, there's a highly educated multilingual workforce in the Netherlands. There's a high diversity in terms of nationalities, not only in Tilburg, but again, in Netherlands in general. I can attest this as an international. This has been actually one of my favorite aspects of being an international student. And also I've been living here for 4 years. And this is one of the main reasons, because I get to meet people from all around the world, learn from them, and also Dutch people, contrary to the several cliches that are out there, they are very welcoming, open-minded, and forward-thinking people as well. And for those of you who are maybe interested in some safety reasons, Netherlands is also one of the safest and happiest countries in the world. And Tilburg is a very safe city as well. So for those of you who are interested in studying in the Netherlands, you might come across a difference between University of Applied Sciences and research universities. So there are two types of universities in the Netherlands. Research universities, this is Tilburg University, Amsterdam University, Radboud, Leiden, and so on. They offer academic education in 3 years bachelor's, usually followed by a master's degree. And this is the type of traditional education where you learn how to have, an analytical point of view. You are always encouraged to be critical thinking. So it's not just about how to do things, but it's also about why to do things. And this is the type of university where you're going to find degrees such as engineering, for example, LLB, so law programs, communication programs, data science programs, economics, econometrics, business programs, and so on. The second type of university in the Netherlands is University of Applied Sciences, which offer professional higher education. So it's very hands-on. They really prepare you for the job market. And they offer 4 years bachelor's programs because you have a 1 year of a mandatory internship. Within the research universities, for example, at Tilburg University, there isn't a mandatory internship, but for most of our programs in the 3rd year, where you have a mobility window, you can do an internship for 1 semester at any international company in the Netherlands, or even going back home for 6 months and working for an international company there. So you could still do it in Bulgaria if you want to. This type of education within University of Applied Sciences, as I said, it's more vocational, more practical. So for example, that's where you'll find nursing programs. That's where you're going to find music programs as well, and more arts-oriented programs. And there are some fields that overlap. So for example, you can study business at both universities, but the approach is different in terms of education. So this one is more practical. Now about Tilburg University. Tilburg locates in the city of Tilburg, which is the 7th largest city in the Netherlands. And maybe when Mia can post it in the chat, I'm not sure which Bulgarian city we can compare it with. And it's very easy to travel around Netherlands because the transportation system is pretty good. So from Tilburg to Amsterdam, you'll spend around 1 hour and 20 minutes by train. To Rotterdam, it's about 50 minutes, and so on. And also in a pandemic-free world, it's very easy to travel around Europe from the Netherlands. So it's about less than 1 hour flight from Amsterdam to London. Very easy to get to Berlin, Paris, Brussels, and other major capitals around Europe. Now, the city itself has 200,000 inhabitants, so that might be a medium-sized city for the Netherlands. So the largest city is Amsterdam with a bit over 800,000, out of which 28,000 are students, because there's more than one university in Tilburg. So that really, I think, speaks volumes for the type of city that you will be living in if you decide to live in Tilburg, because it's really a student city. And on your screen, you will see a picture from a top week party. I think that this is from 2018 or 2019. So this is part of the introduction week of Tilburg University. And of course, that this year we all had to adapt. So most of the activities took place online and in front of a camera. But we do hope that by next year, slowly, we'll get back to normal. A couple of information about the university. So we were founded in 1927 as a business school, this being one of the reasons why our business, economics, finance, and accounting profile, this one is one of the strongest that we offer here at Tilburg University. We have 6 schools on one compact green campus. So in the meantime, they've been added layers of academic education. So now we offer law programs as well, psychology programs, human resources, computer science, artificial intelligence, communication, theology. My colleague Mia will present the options that you have a bit later on. There are more than 17,000 students enrolled at Tilburg University this year, and there are more than 100 nationalities present on campus. We offer lots of international bachelor's programs and master's programs, and by international, I mean that they are taught in English. And we're going to talk about those different points later on. About the international environment that I keep talking about, on your screen, you will see an overview of the main nationalities here on campus. So as you can see, Bulgarians are actually one of the main nationalities present on campus. So we have lots of Germans, Italians, Romanian, Polish, Indonesian, Vietnamese, Russians, Indian, Spanish, Chinese, Lithuanian, Norwegian. So people coming from really around the world. And I think that I mentioned that this was one of my favorite parts of being a student at Tilburg University, because when you have this diversity, not only you grow academically, because you get to debate whatever you study with students coming from all around the world, from different cultural perspectives, from different backgrounds, but also socially, because I can attest that parties are way more better when you have people from all around the world, and so will your international dinners. It's really fun, you know, because there are Romanian barbecues being organized, Bulgarian nights, and I think that Mia can talk about that as well at the end, South African barbecues and so on. So it's really fun to be an international student here. And not only your colleagues will be internationals, but also your lecturers. So more than 40% of the professors from the English taught programs are coming from abroad. So you're going to get that diversity there as well. Now, a couple of reasons why students decide to study at Tilburg University. You'll find them on your screen, and I'll go through some of them. But I think that I'm going to begin with what makes Tilburg University different compared to other universities. And for those of you who might heard of it, the motto of the university is understanding society. That means that whatever you're going to study, so whether it's business or maybe it's data science or law or psychology or communication, you will always analyze and approach societal issues, and you're going to try to find solutions for them. And I'm just going to maybe better explain this by offering you a concrete example. So a couple of years ago, the United Nations World Food Program, which is a program that distributes food to countries such as Syria, Iraq, Yemen, so affected countries by socio and political developments there. So the World Food Program challenged Tilburg University data science students to come up with a optimization of the food chain distribution. And that's what they did. So they use data science, they use big data to create these algorithms and to optimize the food chain distribution. And in just 2 years, more than 20 million euros were saved for the United Nations World Food Program. So just to give you a concrete example of the type of approach that the university has. Another important aspect of the university, I think itself, is the green campus. We have one of the few green campuses and compact campuses in the Netherlands, which means that everything is on one place. So all buildings are on the same campus, the library is here, there are several restaurants where you can eat on campus, the gym is very close to the campus, and pretty much all your labs, so everything is in one place. So you won't have to travel around the city in order to get to different buildings, because we do have a compact campus. And all pictures that you do see in these presentations are taken in our campus. And it's unfortunate now that I cannot invite you to visit our campus because of the COVID-19 restrictions. But again, I am maybe, call me an optimist, but I hope that slowly we're going to get back to offline education. Of course, respecting the regulations of the government and safety regulations as well. We are a leader in the field of business, economics, psychology, and law. I'll briefly present you the rankings after this. There are lots of opportunities for extracurricular activities. So, besides go to, for example, debate clubs or big clubs, or you can be a part of a study association or a student association such as ISN, which is the Association for International Exchange Students. You can, if you're a law student, for example, you can be a part of the Student Association of Law program and attend all sorts of mock trial, then get professional experience as well. There are study associations that organize field trips to Brussels and Den Haag and so on. So there are really things that you can do with your time outside your the time that you spend in classes and in the library. There's also student counseling and support. There's a psychologist, well, there are actually 3 psychologists in the university that you can set an appointment with if you're struggling, for example, with, I don't know, integrating in the Dutch society, or you just you don't like the food or something. So you can talk to those people. And there are also a couple of extra facilities that are useful for our students, such as a career center. So we have a career center that can assist you with finding a job, for example, and Mia is going to talk about that at the end of it. We also have a language center. So each Tilburg University student gets 2 free language vouchers. That means that you can learn Dutch for free, or you can learn French, you can learn Spanish, you can learn Mandarin if you want to, and you can use these vouchers throughout your student experience here. And there's also a sports center fully equipped. So besides, going to the gym, like fitness machines and so on, you can take, play football, you can take tennis classes, horse riding, self-defense classes, swimming, basketball, even pole dancing. So, I already mentioned basketball, so rowing classes as well. There's an association of Tilburg University that resides next to a lake where you can practice, and some of these sports, you can do it at a professional level as well. So just for those of you who might be interested in the sports facilities. And as I mentioned, in the 3rd year, there's a thing which we call mobility window. So for 1 semester, you can either go abroad and study at one of our partner universities. We have partner universities all around the world. And on your screen, you will see some of the most sort of popular ones. So you can go study all around Europe, in Italy. Bocconi University, for example, it's one of our partners. It's one of the best economics profile universities in the world. You can also go study in Shanghai or in Taiwan or in the US, in Colombia, as I said, Mexico, pretty much all around the world. So this is an option quite popular amongst our students. The second option is to do an internship. So again, you can find an internship and work for a company for a semester, or you can just specialize and take more minors and more classes, at the university. Now, just a short overview on our rankings that you'll see. So as you can see on your screen, we are ranked as number 6 in business administration, according to Shanghai rankings in the world, just to give you an indication of the type of quality of education that you'll receive here. And then we're also top 60 in the world when it comes to law, psychology, business and economics, accounting and finance, and so on. About housing, this is quite a tricky subject, and it's a very important one. And if you decide to study at Tilburg University or in the Netherlands in general, you should be prepared to look for accommodation in time. So don't wait until August to find a room, because you're gonna struggle with it. But if you start somewhere at the end of the spring, maximum beginning of June, then to start looking for one, see what platforms are there, then that's gonna increase your chances of getting accepted into a house or a dorm. So there are mainly two options for which you will find details if you go to tilburguniversity.edu/accommodation. The first option is to live in one of the dorms that we have partnerships with. So for example, Talent Square, where I lived as a student, is about 15 minutes biking away from the university, and Copenhagen, which is very close to the university, is another dorm where Mia lives now in a studio. So these are the options in terms of shared facilities. And if you want to live in a student house or a student apartment, then that's possible on the private market. And there's also, if you go and access this webpage, there is also a housing officer that you can email if you're struggling with accommodation, or if you want more information about the accommodation possibilities as a Tilburg University student. And now I'm going to give the floor to our Bulgarian 3rd year student, Mia. Mia, whenever you want me to go to the second slide, just say it so and I'll click it off, okay?
Okay, thank you so much. You can move on to the next one. And Maya, I see your questions in the chat. I see everyone's questions in the chat. Some of them are going to come later in the presentation, but I will cover global law. Just as a reminder to everyone, all of our bachelor's programs have a duration of 3 years. You can extend it a bit if you want, but in 3 years, you will be able to finish it. And so first I'll cover our programs in the fields of economics, business, and management. Of course, we already mentioned our International Business Administration program, which is a very good program if you are interested both in business, economics, and management, because it does cover the 4 main areas of management, which are, of course, management, marketing, finance, and accounting. So it really does give you a very good overview in an international sort of way of how to, what things go into running a successful business. We also have a Bachelor's of Economics, which is a very unique program in the sense that it's one of the few programs in the Netherlands that is very purely economical. So that's mainly micro and macroeconomics involved in it, and how the stock markets and so on are integrated in our current very dynamic society. We also have a brand new program of entrepreneurship and business innovation, and that's more for people who are interested in maybe starting their own business or even just being the force of change within an already existing structure. And I'll move on to the next ones. Yes, so for those of you who are also interested maybe in something that's a little bit more quantitative, STEM, IT, and so on, we also have the Bachelor's of Cognitive Science and Artificial Intelligence, which includes focus on machine programming, but also linguistics in humans and how to transfer that into machines. We also have our Bachelor's of Data Science, which is a joint degree with Eindhoven University. So it means you will have lectures on both campuses, but it really does give you a good explanation and understanding of how to analyze and optimize all of the data that we currently have in this very digitalized world. And we also have the Bachelor's of Econometrics and Operations Research, which might be very interesting for you if you are really good at mathematics or you have maybe a really big interest in mathematics as well, because it is essentially using mathematical models to improve business operations. Yeah, you can move on to the next one. Yes, here is our social and behavioral sciences options. And as already mentioned, I'm doing the Bachelor's of Human Resource Studies, People Management, which is really a little bit of a middle ground between our economics business programs and our psychology programs, because it does try to combine the way an organization works, both from the point of view of the employer and the employee. So not only how to make a successful business, but how to make your place of employment good for your employees, which has many benefits outside of the economic ones. Our Bachelor's of Psychology is also a very popular program currently. It's our only numerus fixus program, which means it's the only program at Tilburg University which has a set amount of spaces, and it has 9 different majors that you can choose from which we have economic psychology, you have forensic and clinical psychology, which are quite unique. But there's, of course, also 6 other different majors. So anything your heart desires might be covered in that sort of field. We have the Global Management of Social Issues Bachelor, which is very tied to our motto of understanding society because it deals with wicked problems. Wicked problems are essentially problems that we don't have a clear solution to, and we also don't quite understand how they came about. But in order to resolve them, multiple people have to work together. For instance, global warming or poverty, it's all things like that, which solving them would benefit everyone. But because all parties involved have their own agendas, more or less, you really have to be able to balance all of that as well. Then we have our Bachelor's of International Sociology, which focuses more on culture and the globalized world and the way currently people interact and how culture affects that through the prism of where I'm coming from and what my culture has socialized me to do. Now we move on to our next options. Yes, so our global law program is essentially really quite unique in the sense that it's not just teaching you about how these programs interact. So not only about how the different law systems interact in one place, but it also will delve into some of these legal systems. For instance, the US legal system will be taught to you at some point. But here the idea really is for you to be prepared to resolve problems which arise when multiple legal systems interact. For instance, there is a data leakage scandal from Facebook, but the data leaked was the one in Germany. So now you have Facebook, who has headquarters in the US, and Germany, on the other hand, who has its own legal system, like its own German legal system, and how would one resolve that issue taking into account both. And next we have, when Anka changes the slides, yes, we have our Humanities, Culture, and Communication option. So we have our Bachelor's of Online Culture, Art, Media, and Society, which really does focus on the digital space right now, digital media and digital forms of expression. You cover topics such as internet trolls, for instance, and just the idea of how all of that and to some extent communication is influenced by new technologies. Then for those of you who might be interested in the place of Christianity right now in the modern world, also as influenced by its historic roots, our Bachelor's of Theology might be very interesting for you. And you'll also be studying the original languages in which the Bible was written, so you can interpret texts in their original meaning. And next we have our University College Tilburg Liberal Arts and Science program. This is a little bit kind of its own separate entity, and it is perhaps the closest we get to the US system, because in the first year of this program, you have a lot of different subjects from a lot of different fields like neuroscience, business, law, and so on. And the idea is that in the first year, because maybe you don't yet know what you want to do, what you want to study, the idea is that you get to experience so many of these fields. And then in the second year, you choose to major in one of the options given here, like law, business, social sciences, and cognitive neuroscience. Yes, now I'll briefly cover our master's programs, which are quite a bit more. So generally, they are also one-year programs who are fully taught in English, but it depends because some people may want to extend their program in order to account for an internship. Some people might decide to do a research master's. Sometimes we have double degrees that you can do at our and another university. So the timing may vary from 1 to 1.5 to even 2.5 years. And now we'll cover some of these programs because, yeah, there's more than 60 tracks of them. In business and management, we have our more popular ones are science, marketing analytics, marketing management, and so on. And then, of course, we have our economics masters. We have a research master's in economics as well. Then we have econometrics and mathematical economics and such subjects. In digital sciences, culture, and philosophy, you have health and humanities, media design, you have philosophies of humanities and culture, and then you also have philosophies of contemporary challenges. You have art and media studies, and then in terms of law and public administration, you have one of the more interesting ones are law and technology. You also can study the labor law and employment relations one or international business tax law. Yes, in the behavioral sciences, again, we have quite a few options, some research masters, but then also some masters in economic psychology. We have sociology as well. Positive psychology and well-being is quite a novel program and very unique in that sort of sense, but really a big variety of options. And then in data science and AI, we have data science and society, which is geared for people who want to go into data science but don't come from STEM backgrounds. We also have data science and entrepreneurship, which is for more STEM background people, and it's also a partnership again. And yeah, cognitive science and artificial intelligence shows up again. So on. And a continuation of our bachelor's in theology is our master's in Christianity and society. Yes, so some of you might decide to do some extra things with their masters. Of course, if any of you are interested in masters at this point in time, but even if you're not, it's good to know that you could have double degree options. So you could follow an additional master's program at our or sometimes in a different university as well and obtain an additional master's degree. You could also add 6 months to your program to account for having an internship specifically. And yeah, you can see that it's available for students of TISEM and TSB most of all. And then also the QTAM network, that's for TISEM students, really is also an option to do something additional to your study. Yes, so for those of you who are wondering what happens after graduation, because that's of course also a very valid question, you can see a lot of things here about search visas and so on this side, but those are for people who have a non-EU citizenship status. So for you, this really isn't that important. But Tilburg University lends its career services to you even 1 year after you've graduated. So that would also help you in terms of, they can help you with your CV. You can go to workshops about how to handle interviews or how to handle your personal branding on LinkedIn and so on. So you can also use that to help yourself find a job after you've graduated the university. And yeah, now Anka will take over again for admissions and applications, which I saw in the chat is quite a bit of a hot topic. So we'll go to that as well.
Okay, thank you, Mia, for presenting the programs. Guys, I hope that you found it useful. So again, if you have any questions about the content of any of these programs, you can drop your question in the chat, and then I'm going to tackle upon it after the presentation. So just a couple more minutes to go. About the diplomas that we accept here at Tilburg University. First, if you have any questions about our eligibility conditions, you can always contact Skylines, because they've been our partners in the Bulgarian market for so many years now, and they're up to date with all the developments within the university. So if you have any questions about that, you can contact them or send us an email, but they can help you with the information about how to submit an application, and also about the diplomas that we accept. And this on your screen, you will find an overview of the conditions that we have for the Bulgarian diploma, which I'm afraid that I cannot pronounce, but you will see it right there on your screen. So it has to come from an academic comprehensive stream, and you need an overall grade point average higher than 5. Now, there might be some subject requirements for our programs, and most of them apply to mathematics, actually, and you will see some of your screens. So if you want to study econometrics and operations research or data science, for example, you must pass mathematics with grade 5 or higher as part of the state matura. For the rest of our programs, we have most of a standard level of mathematics. And if you want to study anything that has to do with psychology or sociology or social sciences in general, then the only criteria is to have taken mathematics up to your final year of high school and receive a passing grade. So mathematics is the only subject requirement that applies. If you want to study law, for example, or communication, then we don't care about the mathematics level, because those programs don't have a mathematical component. We also accept most of the European Union diplomas, and if there are some of you that have an international diploma, such as IB, for example, we ask for an overall score higher than 24 or 32 for global law, so it depends per program. There's an American high school diploma that we can accept, provided that you have at least 4 APs. And if you're studying the British curriculum, then we need at least 3 GCSEs A level and 6 subjects in total. So you will need 3 more GCSEs regarding that. Any questions about that, post them in the chat again. And then there are also some additional admission criteria. So for those of you who will graduate from a regular Bulgarian high school, then a mandatory English proficiency test will be in place. We accept 3 types. So we either accept IELTS, TOEFL, or Cambridge, and you'll find the scores right on your screen. And then you'll find also information about the math requirements, which I already talked about. About the master's admission requirements. So in order to get into one of our master's programs, you will need a relevant bachelor's degree. So the admission officer will take a look at a couple of important and key topics that you have studied during your bachelor's. So if you want to study law, for example, they will need to see that you've taken enough law classes or that you have a law degree. Just as an example, an English proficiency test is also required. Again, IELTS, TOEFL, or Cambridge. For masters, we have slightly higher scores accepted. And for those of you who would like to study anything that has to do with economics, business, data science, artificial intelligence, and so on at a master's level, then you need either a GRE test or a GMAT. GRE and GMAT are mandatory, but only for master's students. So they do not apply to bachelor students. Now, how to submit an application? Again, our partners from Skylines can assist you with that. Mainly, there are 2 steps. So you have to register in StudiaLink. This is the Dutch governmental platform for higher education, and you can register for a maximum of 4 programs in StudiaLink. And then you have to submit your application in our online applications system, Osiris. So within 48 hours after you submit your application, you will receive an invitation to submit your application in Osiris. 48 hours after the StudiaLink registration, sorry. And then you'll have to submit there the documents that you need. So besides your English proficiency test and your grade list and a copy of your passport, some programs will ask for a cover letter, so a motivation letter. Some programs will ask for a CV. Other programs will ask for an essay, or you will have an online interview if you want to study human resources or law, for example. So you can always check the admission application webpage of each program because they are very well updated. In terms of deadlines for the bachelor programs, May 1st is our general deadline. However, there's one exception, which is the bachelor in psychology, because this is a numerus fixus program, and that means that there is more of a selection procedure. So this is the only program that we have for which you will have to pass an online exam. That I can tell you more about if there are any of you interested in psychology. And in terms of the master application deadlines for the September intake, the EU deadline is July 1st. And for the February intake, the EU deadline is December 1st. So you can start all of your programs in September. However, some master programs also start in February. So they have 2 intakes. Now, in terms of costs and just financial aspects in general, so I already mentioned the tuition fee for European Union citizens. That's around 2,000 euros per year, and it can get up to 14,000 for students that come from outside the European Union. And in terms of monthly cost, and I can tell this from my personal experience as well, with around 800 to 1,000 euros, you should be able to have a decent, actually a good life in Tilburg. So we can count with somewhere around 350, 500, 600, depending on your budget and your lifestyle for accommodation, food, drinks, and transportation around 300 euros. Books that you have to buy around 75 euros, but you won't have to buy books every month. And insurance, medical insurance, which is mandatory in the Netherlands, that's around 45 euros. So if you already have an insurance in Bulgaria and it's a private insurance, if you decide to study in the Netherlands, you have to check with your insurer that you are covered in the Netherlands. And if not, you can always go to our website and you'll find there all sorts of recommendations. In terms of unique costs, if you're a Bulgarian citizen, you won't need a visa. So in the Netherlands, you don't have any restrictions in terms of living or working. So no visa required, no working permit or something like that. A second-hand bicycle, that's around 70 euros. And I hope that you're ready to bike every day of your life, because that's gonna happen if you're a student in the Netherlands. Everybody bikes here. It's the main transportation, you know, in Tilburg around the city. You don't really need to take the bus because you're going to be able to bike throughout all seasons. And a sports car that costs 130 euros per year, and that will give you access to the entire sport portfolio of the university. Now, if you want more information, again, you can contact our partner Skylines. You can also download your online brochure, which I recommend you to do, because that's where you can find more information, not only about the programs and the classes that you will be taking, but also about sports facilities, extracurricular facility, immigration matters, financial matters, and so on. There's also a big announcement that I need to make in case you didn't know about it. So next Saturday, this Saturday, actually, October 31st, we organize our online open day. The registration is free of charge for this open day, and you can register online just going to the link that I posted there. And you're going to be able to attend trial lectures, information sessions for all the programs that we offer at Tilburg University. You can talk to current students. There's an international students information sessions that I'm going to host there. There's also an international booth with representatives from several departments of the university. So this is really a good chance to see exactly what a program is about. And if you're doubting between 2 programs, for example, then you can attend the information sessions and trial lectures for both of them. So that will really give you a glimpse into what you can expect. And I think that I just wrapped up the presentation. So now I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we can focus on the Q&A section. And should I start scrolling? Yeah, do you want to answer some questions maybe that popped up in the chat more often? And then I'll see what else I can answer. Is there anything discussed intensively?
Not really. They asked a little bit about the tax as per semester, but you already covered that, and something about the deadlines of submitting your documents. So just to repeat that again, if maybe someone didn't see it already, the deadline for almost all of our bachelor's programs is the 1st of May. The only exception is psychology, and if you want to apply for our psychology bachelor's, please hand in your documents no later than January 15th. Now, Vasco's asking if there are not tuitions, I'm so sorry, there are scholarship opportunities.
Right. So for European Union citizens, especially for bachelor students, we don't usually offer any scholarships. So there's nothing that you can count on at Tilburg University. And that is because the tuition fee is so low compared to non-EU students. So we don't offer any scholarships. If you want to get financial aid, that's possible through the Dutch government. So as long as you are enrolled at Tilburg University and you have a Bulgarian passport or any other type of European Union national's passport, then you can apply for a loan from the government. The platform is called Duo.nl. Mia, would you mind posting that in the chat? Duo.nl?
I'm currently writing out the message, yeah.
Okay, great. Oh, sorry, then afterwards. You can loan the money from the government, which you have to pay back a couple of years after graduation. And if you work for at least 56 hours per month, so that's sort of a weekend job or a part-time job, then you can get free transportation, you can loan more money from the government, and also you can get a grant based on your parents' financials that can get up to 400 euros. And this is what I did as well when I was a student. But for these options, so free transportation and loaning more money from the government, you need to work for at least 56 hours for any Dutch company. Otherwise, if you're not working, you can just loan the tuition fee from the government. And I'm gonna yeah, all good. I can just post it unless you already have.
Yeah, and you have two questions that I think maybe it's best for you to address, that they are asking about international business administration. Do they need a state matura for in order to apply?
For mathematics, as far as I know, no. That's only for econometrics and data science. But I'm looking at Evelina now because I feel that she might answer this question even better than I can. It's not required for IBA, right, Evelina?
It's definitely not required for the IBA program. Although you have to have 5 in mathematics in your diploma as a final grade, but not matura. It is not required, definitely.
So for econometrics and data science, right? That's where, because those programs have a high focus on mathematics. And you're going to take classes such as calculus and linear algebra and so on. So we need to make sure that you're going to be able to get through your years of university here. And this is why those require matura, mathematics at the matura level, but for the rest, you don't need to pass one. What is the grade point average for global law? So there isn't really a minimum score that university requires. There's an unofficial one. Usually they would require you to be in the first 30% of your school system. So if your grades are from 1 to 10, then you will need to have more than 7, but this is not what's going to make you eligible or not eligible. So first they need to see that you have the right type of diploma. And if you have the Bulgarian that I mentioned, then you do. And then they will look at your English proficiency test, at your motivation letter, at your CV. You also have an interview. So there are more factors that are taken into consideration other than grades. However, of course, that they will look, when you submit your application, you would submit your grade list from all years of high school. And therefore they will look at your entire performance. If somehow in the second year you started getting, only like the first 20% of your grading system, then they're going to be worried and probably not accept you. Yeah, it isn't the minimum that I can talk to you about now.
So Galina is asking, because she will be graduating with a Bulgarian and an American diploma. She'll be applying with her Bulgarian diploma, but she wants to ask if she needs an IELTS certificate or can she supply her American diploma instead of an English proficiency test.
Mm-hmm. So if you graduate at an American high school and your entire secondary education was in English, then there's a very high chance that you will get an exempt from the admission officer. However, you're going to have to submit an application first because I cannot make this decision. The good part about it is that you can submit your application without the English proficiency test. So you can submit it without it and just mention that you're graduating from an American school. And then the admission officer will let you know whether you still have to submit your test or not. And then you're going to have time until August 1st, 2021 to submit your English results. But generally, that's an exception. So if you graduate from an international school, you don't need to submit a test.
Okay, so I'll take over this next one from Boris Popov, and I'll answer it in English because he asked it in English, because it ties a little bit into something that maybe all of you would like to know, how examinations go here at Tilburg University. as well. So Boris is asking if how the exam consists of like the final examination for the bachelor program and how it takes place. So I'll kind of preface this by explaining how our examination system overall works, and then I'll focus on the last exams you will have to take in your potentially third year or fourth year if you decided to defer something. So overall at Tilburg University, some of our faculties, like if you're in a program such as IBA, you'll have semesters. So you have semester 1 that starts in September and ends in December, and semester 2 that starts in January, February, and ends somewhere around June. And you will have your like big examinations at the end of December and in May/June, but you may have what is called a midterm exam in October, in the middle of October, and then again another midterm session in the middle of, actually kind of more at the end of March, in the beginning of April. Now, if you're in our Faculty of Social and Behavioral Sciences like I am, within the semesters you have block systems, which means you change the subjects you're studying roughly every 2 months, which means that every 2 months, that means in October and then again in December, you have final exams, but then you don't no longer have to study these subjects and you move on to new ones. And what happens in the end in your third year is that you are going to have to write out your bachelor's thesis and submit it to the people who will be looking over it in the end. But for, I'm pretty sure, almost all of our programs, aside from our bachelor's thesis, in the last semester of your education, you'll have maybe 2 or 3 courses in addition. So you will have exams for those courses, but the bachelor's thesis you just write and then you just send it to be proofread and so on. Yes, okay.
So I see another question here. What are the mathematical requirements for psychology bachelor? So the only math requirement for psychology is that you take mathematics in the final year of high school and that you pass the exams and that your own grade is higher than 5 in general. So you don't need to pass it at the matura level. Just the admission officer will check to see if you've taken math until your final year of high school. And even for those of you who don't, so let's say that somehow maybe you're coming from an international school and you don't have the right level of mathematics, you can still submit an application, because if the rest of your application package is considered eligible, then the admission officers might offer you the possibility to pass an online exam in order to meet the math requirement. So there are ways to go around it, except for data science and econometrics. They won't do exceptions there because the math level is high. I see another question. I'm looking for a university that offers games development programs. An institution of applied sciences will suit me better. Well, we do offer a close to computer science program at Tilburg University, which is focused on data science. So that's then you get programming classes as well. But if you want to focus on games development only, then I think that a University of Applied Sciences will be a better fit for you. I'm not sure whether there is a bachelor, so an academic program that's actually only focused on game development. So maybe our partners from Skylines can assist you with that. But we don't offer this major at Tilburg University. So it's a broad study and it's mostly about dealing with big data besides all those programming classes that you're going to be taking. But it's worth to check it out. What else is there? So about the tuition fee loan, I already posted it in the chat for those of you who are interested. So that's the governmental website that you can enter. However, you cannot apply for this option of loaning the money from the government until you're actually enrolled. But I linked there the international visitors webpage where you can find all sorts of eligibility tests for this loan and also the forms that you need to fill. But again, you're going to have to be enrolled first in a university before applying for it.
I see one about the application for year 12 students. So yeah, I know our deadline is May 1st, but that's the deadline for essentially most of your documents, such as transcripts and your CV that you will have to submit, potentially an essay, depending on what you're looking into. But specifically for your English proficiency test and for your diploma, you can supply those later on. We do understand, and I went through absolutely the same thing. I graduated before I had my diploma. So even in StudyLink, or at least at that time, you indicate at what time roughly you'll get your diploma. So the institution knows, but you just send it whenever you have it, so long as it is before the 1st of August. So you have time for the English proficiency test and the diploma to submit those certificates by the 1st of August. So that doesn't really, it's not the same as the May 1st deadline. The May 1st deadline is just for starting in your application and sending things such as like your ID and then some CVs and so on, just so our admissions office has a little bit of time to look over your application so they can give you a decision. And that's something that in this case you guys might bump into. You will, if you are acceptable and eligible and so on, you will receive a message that says that you are conditionally accepted. Now, if you just haven't supplied your diploma, the condition would be that you just need to supply the diploma, so that it's not something scary, it's not something bad. The condition is just to send in the diploma because it is just required of them.
And again, if you have doubts about that or about the application system itself, you can talk to Skylines, and you can also do research on our webpage, because the application pages are, again, quite well updated. Another question about the German diploma, about the minimum or the overall grade. We don't have an official overall grade that we require from the German diploma, as long as you have an Abitur one, which I'm going to post here because I cannot pronounce it, I'm afraid. So it's this one right there that I just posted in the chat. So that's the German diploma that we accept. Yes, Evelina?
Yeah, because you're posting it to us and they cannot see it. That's why I copied the other reply to the others. So
fair enough. Okay, I'm gonna do it again. Wait, I was posting it to you. What other messages did I post here?
it's okay. For
Thank you so much, Evelina. I didn't realize.
Welcome.
Okay, and I think that, did we go through most of the questions? Guys, if you have questions for Mia, or if you want to discuss with her, for Mirela, Mia, in Bulgarian, or if you have questions about this, transition between moving to Bulgaria to the Netherlands, then feel free to do it.
Yes, and if anyone would feel more comfortable speaking in Bulgarian, just let me know. I can switch and know it's you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I can also speak a little bit about how online education is going now, or potentially about what kind of, okay, is it easy to find a part-time job? I expected this question. Thank you, Laura Maria, for asking it. Okay, so it is perfectly possible to find a part-time job, and also it is possible to find one when you're speaking just English. You don't necessarily have to know Dutch. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for the smiley face. So yeah, it is possible. We usually advise you to do it after the first semester, just because the first semester is really a time for settling in. You're coming here, you have to potentially open your new bank account, you have to register with the municipality. It's just like a whole bunch of things like, oh God, how does the microwave in my apartment work? That was the thing I had to Google in my first year. But yeah, so essentially until you get used to the workload and everything, it's best to just focus on studying. But afterwards, there's a lot of options. For instance, even if you just go into our university website and you go into the Google, the search engine, and you type in a part-time job, it gives you some listings if there's anything open on campus. But even if there's not, it gives you the links to at least 3 websites where you can find job listings. And there's also recruitment agencies around the city that are specifically aimed at finding students places of employment. Now, if you don't know Dutch, it's not going to be like the most glamorous work in the world. But essentially, the other side of it, though, is that it's very flexible work. So you can really tailor it to when you have, whenever you have your own lectures and things like that. Informal questionnaire, all Dutch people, very, very nice. Okay, so personal experience time, they're very, very helpful in sense that like, Laura Maria, I'll go to the lectures question in a bit. I'll first answer Vasco. It's okay, Vasco, I make mistakes all the time on Zoom in front of my lecturers, no less, so you're fine. Yes, so they are very, very friendly. In terms of them being nice, they are, but it's a different way of making friends to Bulgaria, if so to say it, because I have friends with some of my Dutch colleagues as well, but there it's kind of like, you kind of hang around them for a little while, and then it's only once they've accepted you as their own, in a sense, they're super nice, super helpful, super friendly. Before that, they are friendly, but they don't share that much, but that's just because they need a little bit of time to get used to you, to get to know you, and just take into account, especially in your first year, don't get discouraged if maybe they're not looking to come into contact with you. It's just that you're moving there from, like, in Bulgaria, and you don't really have as many social contacts, so you're looking for a brand new friend group, whereas they've lived either in Tilburg or in some adjacent city their whole life, and they're traveling back home on the weekend, so they do have a social circle already. So sometimes it takes a little bit of time to befriend them, but they're never like rude or cold or anything. Like, I know there's this big stereotype that yeah, they're gonna just cut you off and never speak to you, but that's not the case. They're pretty nice. Okay, how many hours of lectures do you have per week? Okay, so it's usually about 12 hours of lectures and tutorials. So it's not every day. For instance, today I only had 2 lectures. Tomorrow I have none. On Wednesday, I think I have 1 potentially. So it's not really a lot in terms of lectures, but you have lectures and tutorials. So the difference is lectures are a little bit more passive, although they'll still expect you to talk during them, which is quite nice. I personally really like the discussions we have in class. But yeah, you sit there, there's a presentation, they're talking to you, you're taking notes, but then you go to your tutorials, which are, even if your lectures are in a big group, because statistics, for instance, is taken by everyone in the TSB faculty, so it's 300 students in one place, the tutorials are still 20, maximum 30 people in like extreme cases, because it really is important that it's kind of a little bit interactive. It's interactive, so they want you to feel comfortable in asking questions, which never happens when it's a big group of people. Then the lecturer asks a question and it's just dead silence, which you can tell from back in high school. Stereotype somewhat debunked. Okay. Yeah, so anyway,
let me just answer this question from oh, sorry, I interrupted you quickly.
No, go.
For the German diploma, there isn't a minimum that the admission officers communicate. So for the Bulgarian diploma, we do have a requirement, which is to have the overall points higher than 5. And also for some programs in mathematics, you need more than 5 within the final examinations, but there isn't such a great requirement for the German diploma. So if you want, you can always send us an email and we can check that with the admission officer, but officially there isn't one. And I think that that answers your question, hopefully.
Добре, има въпрос зададен на български и ще му отговоря на български, колкото да разнообразя. Анка, I'm answering a question in Bulgarian, so just so you know. Да. Коя специалност бихте казали, че е най-широко обхватна и дава най-широк кръгозор в бизнеса? Значи, Стефан, бих казала IBA в този случай, просто защото програмата, която се фокусира върху икономиката, наистина просто е почти чиста икономика, значи микро и макро, което ти дава добра идея за икономиката, но икономика и бизнес не са задължително припокриващи се понятия, или поне не винаги. Икономиката е част от бизнеса, но не е единствената част от бизнеса. Така че IBA в такъв смисъл е най-широка и после можеш, нали, да специализираш в international management и така нататък. Но от друга страна, зависи точно какво искаш. Ако бизнеса, за който говориш, имаш предвид започването на собствен бизнес и как той да е успешен, тогава entrepreneurship and business innovation ще е по-подходящо, но ако просто искаш нещо, което да ти даде базова основа и, нали, просто разбиране за всичко, което отива в бизнеса, бих препоръчала IBA по принцип. Have a nice night to you as well, Laura. Thanks for joining us.
Another question is that a bachelor in IT in Tilburg University, we do offer a joint degree in data science. So that's the closest one that we have to that field. And it's a joint bachelor with Eindhoven University of Technology, which means that if you get accepted into this program, you will be automatically a student of both universities. So both Tilburg University and TU Eindhoven. And your diploma is going to be accredited by both universities, but most of all, you'll go to classes on both campuses. So you take classes in Tilburg and in Eindhoven. The way that the program is set is that if you take the classes in Tilburg one day, the next day, the same day, you won't have classes in Eindhoven, just to make it easier with the transportation. but this one is a combination between mathematics classes and algebra and calculus and lots of programming classes as well. And dealing with data science models, and so on. But then you also get business and law classes, which is the specialty of Tilburg University. So they really get you through both the IT perspective, but also the business perspective. That really prepares you for the job market there. And in the third year, you can actually specialize in data science and entrepreneurship if you want to get more of the business perspective. If not, you can just focus on the technical side. I see a question is, how is the nightlife there? I think the student is very interested because I received it in the Q&A as well. How is the nightlife in Tilburg? Let me tell you, because I'm from Romania. So, and I've been to Bulgaria. So I've got my fair share of Bulgarian nightlife, I think. If the Dutch people don't party the way that we Balkan people do. There are many, big clubs that you can accept. Far from that, you can find, of course, even in Tilburg, there are some sort of the regular clubs with house music where people wear heels and so on and so forth. But those are not the rules. So there are a lot of student parties, there are a lot of pub parties, live music that you can attend, Latino parties and so on, with different kind of music. And most of these are student events. But I wouldn't say that the Netherlands is the home of nightlife, as in the nightlife that I think we have back home. And by back home, I mean Romania and Bulgaria.
Yeah, maybe the closest thing you could get to like nightlife that's the same as here is if you joined a student association. So we have student associations which are not really tied to programs at the university, but if you're from the university, you can join them. It's just a bunch of students having events together. And they do like trips and movie nights and things like that. But all of them have their own party houses, and like some of them brag that they have like 4 different like bar rooms within the house. So that's essentially, I think maybe the closest it comes to like a house party, like a home party. But yeah, you'd have to know the right people. But I do know that the Bulgarians, especially, they organize Bulgarian nights, which are, it begins with food and then ends with music. So that's really comforting some days.
Yeah, I think it's a different type of fun that you learn to enjoy, where mostly we can hear each other. That's I think a good criteria. But you can look into it, of course. Go ahead. Yeah. Any more questions? If you have any more questions, guys, please post them in the chat so that we know what your interest is, or maybe we covered most of them. I'm not sure. Evelina, Dimitar, what do you say? Should we maybe wait a couple more minutes? Maybe students will come up with questions now. But yeah, you had a good suggestion about telling them a bit about how online education goes. So just briefly in a couple of seconds. I see it nodding.
Yeah, and then I'll give the floor to Evelina, who unmuted herself, but kindly muted herself again so I can explain online education right now. So yes, currently for the safety of all of our students, we've moved everything online, which has its ups and downsides. It's, I would say, mainly upsides, especially for the first year students. I feel like it's mainly upsides, which essentially means that most of your lectures are either like Zoom lectures like this or pre-recorded lectures that you can just like watch whenever you want, which is the main advantage, I would say, because it really doesn't tie you so much to like a specific time of the day. And also, if you have an 8:45 lecture, you can do it from home in your pajamas, or you can do it later that night, which I personally enjoyed quite a bit. But yes, so in lecture-wise, as I said, usually we are very adamant about interaction between students and lecturers. So it's perfectly fine to ask all of the questions you have. It's also fine if you would like to disagree with the lecturer, as long as you have some arguments to back your statement up. It's perfectly fine if you don't agree with what they're saying during the lecture. Now it's a little bit different, especially because sometimes it's pre-recorded lectures, which means no one's gonna pose discussion questions or anything like that. The main thing for me is maybe that your tutorials, especially if you are working with systems such as SPSS or things like that, which sometimes happens, becomes a bit more difficult, just because usually you would be in just like one giant room and people will be walking around, and if you have any tech issues, like the code isn't working, someone will come and check what's going on. Now it needs a little bit of more explanation, but that's actually the main like downside I've found. And overall, yeah, it's convenient in terms of you can structure your time a little bit better. So yeah, the way I have it now, some days I decide to just like watch all my lectures for that week in one day and have the rest of it maybe a little bit more free. But yeah, it's also, I guess it depends also on how much self-discipline you have and how much structure you want to have. And I think I'm done explaining how online education is right now. Oh, just a slight amendment. Currently, you can still save spaces on campus. So we have study spaces that you can go to study. They also sometimes have computers, sometimes not. But you can still go to campus from time to time if you really, because I do get it, it's important to leave your house from time to time. And now I'll give the floor to Evelina, who was going to say something beforehand.
No, actually, I was looking for questions, and now I can see one, which actually is back to you both. Okay. After graduating, what are the chances of finding a job? It's a new question.
Right. So it really depends on what you would like your position to be, and also your performance throughout your studies. So we advise students to do internships during the summer, for example, or to do them if possible during their study. It's a bit more difficult as bachelor students, but you still have time during the summer. It's important to get involved into extracurricular activities, to get involved into conferences and seminars and so on and so forth. So on average, our graduates find a job within 3 months after graduation. But again, since we cannot influence the decision of a private company in hiring the students, it's really up to you to gather that experience so that you can increase your chances of getting admitted. If you go to our LinkedIn page, for example, so if you go to Tilburg University LinkedIn and you click on graduates, then you will find an overview of what our Tilburg University alumni do. You'll see that most of them work in business and entrepreneurship, but also law and also social sciences related programs. Some of them work for private companies, other work for supranational organizations such as the United Nations or European Commission, for example. So it really depends. This country is a good country to live and work in. And there are lots of companies and startups that do a lot of innovation as well. There are companies, of course, that it depends for the field that you want to study. So if you want to study law, for example, you can get hired in a law department of a private company, or you can work for a governmental institution. But again, you have to keep it up yourself and bring yourself to the level of your competitors, which is your colleague students or other students from other universities. And there are also internship opportunities posted throughout your classes. So for example, if you are studying law, European Commission has internships every summer, but also we have partnerships with all sorts of other companies that do hire students as interns. And this is something that you have to be prepared for, especially after graduation. You will most likely go through an internship first, or of 3 months or 6 months, and then you will have the possibility of working full-time afterwards.
Okay, I have one question from Sophia that I'll answer in Bulgarian. Okay. Така, София, благодаря за въпроса. Кога е най-доброто време за търсене на квартира в Тилбург? Така, по принцип винаги казвам, колкото се може по-рано, толкова по-добре, просто защото не е, че е толкова невъзможно, колкото че места се запълват сравнително бързо. Така че просто колкото по-рано започнеш, толкова по-лесно протича процеса. Като цяло, тъй като вие може потенциално да имате помощ от Skylines, ако решите, това означава, че може би ще трябва да почнете по-късно в този аспект, така че аз мога да говоря само от собствен опит, тъй като аз търсих сама. Но в общи линии, ако се започне някъде април-май месец, няма никакъв проблем с намирането. Като цяло, колкото повече наближи юни-юли, толкова повече хора се изнасят, понеже горе-долу от тогава завършва учебната година, така че ако си третокурсник, тогава се изнасяш, освобождаваш квартирата. Като цяло, ако опитвате да влезете в Talent Square, възможно най-рано, ако можете да се запишете за техния списък, защото нали, просто е на база на който се е записал най-рано. Но бих казала, ако ще започвате през септември месец, април-май е добро време да се почне търсенето.
Аз ако може да добавя само нещо, здравейте. Значи, принципно квартира е едно, другото е което възможностите за настаняване в общежитие, Talent Square и други опции, които предлага Tilburg. И принципно е най-добре да сте кандидатствали, да знаете, че имате условна оферта, която да покрива определено условие в дипломата или примерно сертификат по английски, ако ви липсва, защото април-май самия университет отваря кандидатстването, регистрацията за Talent Square, едно от най-желаните общежития, където няма места за всички, общо взето е first come, first serve basis, но реално вие имате шанс, ако вече имате условна оферта и сте я приели тази оферта. И вече оттам нататък са другите опции, които предлагат в други видове общежитие и частния пазар, квартирите.
Да, и Велина казва нещо, което е много разумно. Въобще ли, колкото по-рано подадете документи и ви кажат дали сте приети или не, толкова по-рано може да почнете търсенето и толкова нали, по-малко ще се стресирате за това. Но да, Talent Square е едното място, Кобен кампус е другото място, където живея аз, където няма списък, но да, тъй като тук местата се запълват бързо, колкото по-рано може да тръгнете да търсите, толкова по-успешни ще сте в крайна сметка.
All right. I see another question regarding internships and the... Oh no, what was it? It was in the Q&A. Sorry, somebody. Okay, the exchange programs and internships. So the way that exchange programs go is that in the third year, as I mentioned in the presentation, you have a mobility window. For most of our programs, I think data science is the only exception that doesn't have a mobility window because it's a very specific program. And the curriculum only applies to Tilburg University, this combination between Tilburg University and Eindhoven University of Technology. So in the third year, in the first semester or the second semester, depending per program, you can go and exchange to one of our partner universities all around the world. Where you can study, it depends on the type of program that you're studying. So I see a question here, for example, if you can do a master's program in the US. We do have partnerships for the law programs, for example, with the Connecticut University in the US. And if you do your master's there, you're also going to get a reduction in tuition fee. Whether you can do it after you graduate, yes, the Tilburg University diploma is internationally recognized. However, you will have to apply to a relevant master degree, and needless to say, you need to meet the admission requirements of that specific university that you're submitting your application to. In terms of exchange, we have partners, as I said, all around the world. So if you want to study business, for example, that's where the most options would come. So you can do it all around Europe. I have a friend, he's German, and he did his international exchange in Colombia, and he was studying international business administration. You can also do it in Shanghai. You can also do it in South Africa. So there are really lots of options that you can find on our website, but you don't have to decide now. So you will have time until your second year to make a decision. And if you want to apply to an exchange semester, then that's how you'll do. You're going to select a number of 3 universities, so your 3 preferences, where you submit your application to, and then those universities will decide whether you can attend their programs.
And I actually have something to add to our exchange procedure.
Yeah.
Anka says in the second year, because that's when you apply for it, but I would personally recommend thinking about it already at the end of your first year. And you also have, because at Tilburg, for most of our programs, you have what is called a mentor program called PASS, where you're assigned a mentor to your class or to a group of people in your class, just so it doesn't get overcrowded, who will help you with making such decisions and also in kind of accommodating to the Netherlands and so on, acclimating here. But the thing with our internships as well is that not internships, I'm so sorry, for the exchange programs, in order to apply for them as early as possible, which is kind of the beginning of November, you have to have passed essentially all of your classes from the first year. So that's something to take into account. There is, of course, a second registration opportunity so that you have time to make up for some of the credits you might not have if you haven't passed all of your first year classes. But that would mean that you're applying a little bit later, which means that the places you want to go aren't as available anymore. So I would start thinking about it already at the end of my first year. So think somewhere around May. Yeah, you don't have to start thinking it as soon as you start the university, but around May is a good time. And at that time, they will also, a lot of the programs sit you down and have a presentation for all of the options you'll have in your second and third years. Sometimes it also includes inviting older people from the same program who've done these different things, just so you can hear firsthand experience of the situation.
Mm-hmm. I hope that that answered your questions, guys, about internships and exchange programs. I don't see any new ones.
Not in English, but you have some more questions
okay,
that I think it's good for you to weigh in on. So if you are applying for the beginning of January, do you need to send predicted grades from your diploma? That's from Christiana, but Christiana, are you applying for a master's program or are you applying for a bachelor?
I think she might be talking about the psychology one, which has a 15th of January.
Yeah.
Yes, and maybe she's referring to the deadline 15th of January, and whether applying by that deadline, you would need to show what is the prediction of your diploma. Mm-hmm. And the answer is the statement, the educational statement that Tilburg recommends to be enclosed with the application. You can answer, or I don't know.
Sure. So yes, so the predicted grades are required within the statement of educational institution that Evelina was mentioning, which is a document that you will find that you have to fill up with some information about the classes that you have taken and the grades that you receive. Predicted grades, however, are not provided by all school systems. And I think that Evelina maybe struggled a bit with that because we did as well in the beginning, because we kept getting questions from students. So if your school releases these predictive grades, so if you're studying, for example, a British curriculum or an IB, then that's okay. But if not, then you can just submit the grades up to the moment of application.
And then Sophia is asking, is it possible to do a master's degree that's related to some form of art, photography, graphic design, if before that she studied English English language as a philology?
Art and design, geography, these are not the majors that we offer at Tilburg University. So maybe it's a good idea to talk to Skylines and see if they can recommend you other programs. And in terms of eligibility, I'm really not sure about what exactly they require for such a program and whether you would be eligible. So you're going to have to check with each individual university in separately. But Evelina, is there anything that you want to add to the question about predicted grades? How are you dealing with this within the Bulgarian students?
Yes. Okay, so there is a template that you can download from the application admission section in the website for each program. So what happens usually with the Bulgarian applicants, they're contacting their school and checking if the school is willing to sign and stamp this document. But before giving it to the school, they actually fill it with all the grades and everything. So the best scenario is actually to also prepare a Bulgarian equivalent of the educational statement, because usually Bulgarian schools are not that open, especially for documents issued in English or even for documents not issued by them. But we do have also a bilingual version of the educational statement. And usually we would recommend try to fill it in English or Bulgarian, give it to the school, even in both languages, and they can decide which one to sign and stamp. So that's, And if they refuse to sign something that is giving a prediction, because it's not typical for our system, it's okay. Tilburg is very flexible. So as much information as possible given in the statement is okay. And what is missing, it will be figured out differently. So
that indeed. But it's good. Thank you, Evelina, for that, for the insight sort of from the Bulgarian students. So what Evelina said. So talk to your school and see whether they can sign such a document. And if not, you can keep in contact with us and mention it to the admission officer. But ideally, that one should be filled indeed by your school. I already answered this one. Was there another question in Bulgarian that you were mentioning, Mia? Like the second one? Did you already answer that?
Actually, I think that's all of them at this point. But if someone saw something that I missed in the chat, let me know. Yeah, but yeah, personal experience I can also cover for any of you that are a little bit worried about, being kind of moving to a different country and things like that. You can also ask, I think you have the option to like send a private question. So I won't mention your name or anything like that if you're feeling shy.
Oh, I think you've covered a lot of topics, and it's almost 8 o'clock here in Bulgaria. Thank you very much for all this information. Thank you, Anka. Thank you, Mirela. I will continue in Bulgarian just to say that we will send this webinar to everybody via email. Благодаря ви на всички, че участвахте в този вебинар. Както казах, ще изпратим информацията по имейл, както и доста полезна информация, свързана с необходимите документи, срокове за кандидатстване и специфики за всяка една от програмите. При всички положения ще имате и контактите на Мирела и на Анка, ако имате нужда от допълнителни уточнения от тяхна страна. Още веднъж благодаря ви и лека вечер. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you so much for attending, guys. And, thank you to Evelina and Dimitar and Katya and the entire Skylines team for the event. And I hope that you guys found it useful, and good luck with your final exams before Christmas and with your studies as well. And yeah, thank you for joining. I really hope that you found it useful and we can keep in touch. And don't forget about the open day, because that's a great information event for you if you attended. So again, this Saturday, registration free of charge.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Then we can, should I press end?
Oh, you can just close the meeting.
Okay. Thank you so much, guys, for having us.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, this was an interactive event. I'm happy to see that students had so many questions. And,
it was great.
Yeah.
We'll keep in touch about
yes,
it. Is
definitely.
there? I think that are you going to follow up with the leads, Dimitar, right?
Yes, well, that's what I said. We will send an email with the recording of this presentation.
Okay.
And useful information, and then we'll send you the leads to you, so you can send an email as well.
Okay, awesome. Then that will be in contact with Fernanda there, because she's taking care of that part.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. I wish you a great evening and a productive week. And,
thank you.
Yeah. Hello to the entire Skylines team, and we'll keep in touch about the future.
Same to the Tilburg team.
I will give them. Bye, guys. Have a nice evening.
Мирела, благодаря ти.
Супер беше. Благодаря, че ми поканихте, че участвах. Беше приятно да говоря малко на български.
Прекрасен английски имаш. Ние ти се наслаждавахме на английски.
Да. И много добре презентира.
Благодаря.
Our staff student assistant now, Mia. Look at her. She's shy and she's already going through these events without any flinch. So I'm proud of you, Mia. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Лека вечер. Починете.